Welcome to Rock Your Talk with Leisa Reid. This is our expert interview series, and I have my guest here today, Kimberley Loska. Hello, Kimberley. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. How are you?
I'm awesome. So excited to be here today, and I know you have some pretty cool tips with us. Before we get into that, just a little brief information about me. I'm the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now. I also am a trainer and speaker for Productive Learning, just super cool self-mastery company that has been around over almost 30 years now. And I get to talk to amazing people like Kimberley to share some of her expert tips on what's going on these days. And I know Kimberley well, and know that she has some pretty great stuff to share with us, whether it's during what we're sheltering in place right now or just in life in general. So can't wait to hear about you. Tell the audience a little bit about you, Kimberley.
Well, thank you again for having me. It's a privilege to be here with you. Well, I am a life coach and also motivational speaker, and soon to be a new host of a television show. Appropriately,
that's very exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, A Heart Speaks on Jewel TV.
Very, very cool. And I know you had isolated some really great tips based on, your background, your expertise that you thought would be very helpful to anyone really going through some troubled times. You want to share with us what those are?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool.
So the first tip that I love to give people after they have had a tragedy or some sort of trauma, circumstances have hit them hard, the question that we pose to ourselves is, what do we do when the bottom drops out? And so with my clients, of course, it's sprung from my own personal tragedy that I, endured. And I just felt that, this is what helped me during that time. And I think it's appropriate to lend to other people. And so with that, the first tip that I give to people is to reach up. So there's a look up, reach out, and step forward. So the first tip is to look up, and that is to look up to something that's greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And in my situation, it's God. And I endured a lot of trauma in my marriage, and found myself at rock bottom. And so that's the bad news. But the good news is when you hit rock bottom, the only way to look is up, right? Mm-hmm. And so I found myself looking up to God during this period of time and recognizing that I no longer had control. And I think we're all sort of in this quarantine time, we're not in control either.
Right.
And we're sort of riding
things, right?
out.
Yeah.
And it's hit us hard, if it as a nation, and entire world, in fact. But when we're dealing with these issues of trauma and tragedy, whether it be something that someone inflicted upon us or some choice we've made, or as we are dealing with the coronavirus, we need to look up to something greater than ourselves, and we need to find ourselves, I believe, with empty hands. And that is to be, fill me back up, give me the right perspective, so that I can really walk this out and push through even the pain. My book's coming out in about 6 weeks, which is called Purpose in the Pain. And, through my 27 years of marriage, I was married to a wonderful attorney he struggled with some mental disorder. And long story short, the white picket fence that we thought surrounded us really crumbled when he said one sentence to me, which is, "I'm having an affair." And there were some other elements that ensued after that that were very devastating for me. And so I had nothing to grip. I had nothing to hold on to. I guess I'm a little bit of a control freak on certain things. I think we all have our issues. Sure. And that for me it wasn't so much for me as it was our whole family. You know, we think of our children, and so the impact of this blow, it really rattled me
Sure.
because I had no control. But that was a good place. We can look back now and go, good place for me to have been in. But when we're in the middle of it, it's very unsettling, and we just don't really know what to do. So yeah, that's step one, is very important, to look up to something that's higher, greater than yourself, for that direction. And step number two would be to reach out. I counseled many, many women for most of my life. And I through this tragedy that I went through, you know, I learned that I was counseling women, and I was giving this sympathetic ear, right? So I felt sorry, I felt bad for them and loving on them and all of that. But it wasn't until I went through the things that I had to go through with this that I found myself going from sympathy to empathy. And that's where you really feel it. You know, it's not just up here, it's a connection between your mind and your heart. And I think there's an authenticity that happens with that. And so I locked arms with other people that had gone through various trials and tribulations themselves. And they taught me so much and gave me that encouragement and walked alongside of me as I was in the deepest parts of my pain.
Yeah.
Now, I was born and raised in Northern California. And in Northern California, you may or may not know, but we are well known for our redwood trees. And I remember a long, long time ago when I was a little girl and I was walking through one of the forests that was up there, and I noticed, you know, this large redwood tree had toppled over. It was laying on the ground, and I just thought, gosh, it seemed to be about the same height, the same width, you know, all of those things as the other trees that were surrounding it. The difference was this, my grandfather pointed out. He said, well, this one stood alone. And when the storms and the rain and all of the elements beat down on that tree, it toppled over, because the bottom line is a redwood tree has very shallow roots. And so when I looked to the left of me, I saw all these other trees that were very close together. And what I came to find later is those roots intertwined. They intertwined with one another. And that's what, you know, helped withstand the storms and the wind and the rain that would come about, you know, in those Northern California storms there.
So that reaching out is, I love that metaphor of reaching out to support each other, reaching out for support, and interlocking. I've heard you say the interlocking arms or linking arms. I've heard you say that before too. And it's that same metaphor of like, we're stronger together than if we're separate and alone and just trying to take on all those storms by ourselves.
Absolutely. Because, you know, we have a perception, right? And so your perception is what? Your reality. But that's different than perspective. Because just because I have a perception about something doesn't make it true.
Right.
It's just my little tiny peephole, if you will.
Yeah.
Oh, I perceive something. But as you teach, that doesn't make it true. That just really puts a spotlight on the fact that our filtering system is warped. And I believe we all have warped filtering systems, and we need to go introspective and come to a program like that you offer, and get some clarity and understand that it's much more than what you can see. So getting that perspective, that overall view. And so when we lock arms with other people in that way, we see, wow, you know what? You've gone through things too, and it didn't take you down. And so circumstances and trials and situations don't have to take us down.
Right.
But it's really yoking ourselves up with like-minded people who are able to give you that clarity and maybe say, oh, friend, here, you know, you need a new set of glasses to look through. And giving that other window into your mind, into your heart is so helpful. And, you know, we were never meant to journey this life alone.
Right.
We were never meant to journey alone.
I think of the metaphor of like trying on a different jacket or something. Like I'll say, you know, sometimes I'll notice if my perspective is not healthy, or just kind of, I notice I've got some limited, like I can't see everything that's possible. Right. So, oh my gosh, I'm really got this limited view of this particular situation. And I could say to someone else, like, well, you seem like you have a completely different perspective and it's more open and you seem really cool with all this. Can I ask what yours is? And maybe I'll try that on for a bit. Like, so I think of it as like trying on a jacket, which just seems more acceptable, because we want to like grip onto our what we think is right. And so when I think of it metaphorically as putting a jacket on it, it's more like, I'm just going to try it, you know, I'm just going to see, and if I don't like it, I can take it off. It's not as permanent and scary, but like stair step into, let me give it a shot and then see how I feel after that. But I'll often borrow someone else's perspective. And
I think that is the healthy choice.
Yeah.
Right? That's the healthy choice. But a lot of times, as I use this with my clients, sometimes we just like to sit in our poopy diaper.
Oh, for sure. Right? For sure. It's like, I just want to be miserable, you know? Yeah. And so how to navigate that and even catch that we're doing that is
absolutely.
Even when I catch myself doing that, like sticking in a certain mood, I will notice how fascinated I am by that. I'm like, wow, I am really not ready to let go of this, you know, irritation or whatever that feeling that I'm having. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Like I could right now feel different if I chose to. And I'm noticing that it's not easily coming to me, another mood. So it's just kind of when we are able to like step out of our selves and watch ourselves, it's kind of cool.
Yes.
I think it's cool.
Just like our computers, we all have a default system.
Yes, that's right.
And as sick as it might be, right? It's what we know.
Yes.
It's what we know.
That's right.
And I liked what you brought up there, Leisa, the whole thing about choice, because even in the worst of the worst of the worst situations, we always have the power of choice.
Yeah.
And there is power in that. Yeah. You know,
I know you had another tip too. I know you were going to share. So I'm sorry to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah. So we could
talk all day.
But yes. So the third tip, when I have looked up and relinquished control, right? And I see that my hands are empty and I'm open to receive that which is new, that new instruction. Mm-hmm. And I lock arms and you know, navigate this situation with other people in that community of people that I can depend on and trust. The third tip is that we can step forward. Because I have those two things down. It gives me the courage and it gives me the boldness to know I'm not alone. This is not forever. Right. And I have power in my choice. And so I'm going to choose. And as I share my message, I'm going to vote for myself.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And I'm going to step forward into the newness that can happen, because here's the thing. There can be great beauty brought out from ashes. Great Absolutely. Beauty. And you know, I'll kind of close it up with this, Leisa, because there is a wonderful, what is it called? It's like an artwork, and it's called Kansui. And what it is, it stems from the Japanese culture. Now, you and I, we may drop a bowl on the ground and go, well, that's it for that. You know, or if we want to put it back together, we want to put it back together so it looks perfect, that nothing's ever happened. Like it never dropped on the floor. It's absolutely perfect. But in this culture, in the Japanese culture, what they do is they use gold and silver, and they take this bowl and they put it back together, and then they take the gold or the silver and they paint it on the outside, because brokenness in their culture is actually deemed beautiful. And they don't try to hide the flaw, they enhance it.
Yeah.
And they make it purposeful. So no matter what we go through in our lives, no matter what circumstance that we're facing, if for the end goal that we know that we're in good company, first and foremost, and that we're choosing to step forward into the newness that's brought about, I have to have that understanding that no matter what has happened, however horrific, small or large, that happens in my life, it can be made beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like finding the beauty in sadness and anger, in hurt, in pain. And the more, sadness we have, if we've experienced heartache, it also is a testament to how much we love and care for that person or that situation. And that's when we can realize that. I think that's what you're saying. It's so powerful. And it's also another perspective, right? Like, oh, wow. If I wasn't sad, that means maybe I didn't love as much as I could have, or as I, have the capacity to. And so growing our emotional capacity,
we have to be willing, so to speak. I have a lot of these, but we have to be willing to get naked.
Yeah.
I don't mean that literally, but I do mean that,
metaphorically,
from our heart. And yes, and have a sense of transparency and vulnerability. Sadly, society shakes its finger at that and says, oh no, you have to guard yourself, protect yourself, and I say no.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I say no to that. And I say, we have to embrace ourselves, and we have to embrace ourselves, warts and all, because you got warts, I got warts, we've got all these imperfections, but it's not to put ourselves down. It's to say, wow, this is my individuality, this is my uniqueness, this is my story. I have a story of pain, and there is purpose in the pain. But it's all up to you to make the choice. What am I going to do with that which has just occurred in my life? And how will I use it as fuel, and not something that's going to keep me stuck and rocking myself in the corner?
Yeah. And I know people are probably going to want to get a hold of you. Where should they go to find you?
So my website is www.aheartspeaks.com. And you can also reach me by email, which is heartspeaks2, that's a number 2, heartspeaks2@gmail.com. And of course, I'm on Facebook, Kimberley Loska, motivational speaker, and Instagram. So heartspeaks2,
all different Instagram
ways, everywhere. So thank you so much for having me, Leisa. And everybody out there, just keep understanding that we are all a work in process. And so is this world. So, is the coronavirus. It's an awful thing. It's aimed to bring us down. But I feel as a nation and individually and families that I see out there, it's actually building us up. So it's up to us. How are we going to walk through it? Will you look up? Will you reach out and step forward? I hope so. And if you need a wing about you, call me. I'm your girl.
I love that. If you need a wing about you. So if you need a wing about you, make sure and connect with Kimberley Loska, heartspeaks.com, heartspeaks.com, which is such a beautiful way. It's true. Our hearts do speak, right?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on our next episode. Meanwhile, be good to yourself and be good to someone else too. We'll see you later. Bye.